Side Quest. I'm your host, Mignon Fogarty.
And I'm Jane Friedman. I report on the publishing industry through my newsletter, The Bottom Line.
Excellent. And today we're talking about AI scams in the publishing world, AI note takers, how many bad links you get from ChatGPT and other LLMs, and some new examples of AI bias. But first, let's talk about something fun. Jane, have you done anything interesting with AI recently?
I have. I was just at a business conference in New York City, which I don't have a lot of familiarity with, and I had to set up a coffee meeting with a colleague. And I used AI to do this, and I found a fantastic coffee shop that even a native New Yorker did not know about. And
Oh, wow.
I was so pleased with myself. Um, but maybe on a more grand scales, I was recently reporting on the topic of bookstore co-op, which is this little known thing where publishers pay bookstores for certain merchandising and promotion. And I used the deep research function to try and dredge up anything I could about co-op, and it turned up this PDF of co-op policy that Penguin Random House had put online at some point in the last 5 years, which I don't think I would have even thought to look for, but through its deep research, it surfaced it, and I don't think it's supposed to be public. So
Oh,
I was really thrilled to get that.
wow, that's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've been really impressed with deep research too. I used it for something a week or two ago, and it said something like 463 sources consulted. Like that's definitely more than I ever would have done on my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, recently I've been wanting to put up an author website for years, and it has seemed really daunting. And in one of the, I think the most recent ChatGPT demo, I saw that they were making websites. So I gave it a try. I just typed in what I wanted. And I guess a big barrier for me has been that I know exactly the format I want it to be in. And I've never been able to find a template that fit that format. So, I can't even imagine how many hours I've wasted going through WordPress templates or themes and, different possibilities on Canva and things like that, which are great. I had a friend who was putting up a website at sort of the same time I was doing this, and bing bam boom, he had a Canva website up in an hour, and it was gorgeous. It looked beautiful, but I couldn't find the things that I needed in a website. So I went to ChatGPT, and I it was pretty simple prompt, make me an author website with a page for books, a page for podcasts, a page for courses. um, and I spent far more time gathering all the images I needed. So the jacket images for all my books and a couple of headshots and cover photos for my courses. I probably spent an hour and a half on that. And then with probably 4 or 5 rounds of prompting, I had exactly what I wanted in
No
terms of,
kidding.
yeah, in terms like HTML that I could upload. So the caveat is that it was not beautiful. Like no matter no matter how I tried prompting it, make it in an Art Deco style, make it, you were a designer, make it more beautiful. No, it came out the same every time, no matter what style parameters I gave it. But the bones, the everything in the right place, the courses lined up in a row, and the buttons even, and just everything I physically wanted on the page was in the place I wanted it. And now I feel like I can go to a designer and say, make it attractive. But this is exactly the format that I want. So it was very impressive.
So this is just raw HTML that it's putting out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And so you get the HTML, you can download it to your computer and then, open it in your browser. It opens it locally, and you can click through and see how it all works. But it is interesting because with a number of AI projects, I've found that it does the thing I want it to do, but then there's still things I need to do to make it finished. So, I still have to write all the text that goes on the website, and I keep putting that off because it's still a back burner project. So I haven't launched it because I still have to write all the copy. I'm a writer. I'm going to write the copy on my own website. I'm not going to let AI do it. So, I still have to do that work. But I got the bones of the website that I really wanted, and that and it would have been the biggest barrier.
Yeah, yeah. As someone who is in charge of her own website and has always designed it and got into the guts, that using AI for that kind of like, I can't imagine doing it because I don't want to give up the tinkering and the control.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm the kind of person I used to, in the early days of podcasting, I would code my own RSS feed and, I've coded my own websites, back in the day. And then I used tools along the way, like Dreamweaver and things like
Mm,
that. But, oh, I just hadn't wanted to do it anymore. I just, and this is a simple site,
yeah,
that
yeah.
like maybe 5 or 6 separate pages with very specific elements on
Mm,
them.
mm.
So I was really happy with that. So, but it's not always happy in the world of AI. So, in your newsletter recently, you wrote about a new scam that you encountered that seemed to be AI enabled.
Right. So there have always been so many scams targeted at writers, especially those who are trying to market and promote their books. And it's really a new iteration of the scam where someone swoops in and says, "Oh, we can help you get more reviews. We can help you get a book to film deal. We can exhibit you at this big trade show." But they've become more sophisticated because now the scammers can take, say, the Amazon page or any publicly available materials about the book and then generate a very realistic sounding email from like a fan, someone who has really spent time with the book. And so when I was meeting with a writer recently, her book had been out for almost 2 years, and she received this reader email that was just a rave. It's the sort of thing that every author loves to receive, like someone whose life has been changed by your book. And she showed this email to me as, look at how readers are responding. If I could only get my book in the right place or get the right promotion, it's just destined to be a bestseller. And I looked at the email, and it was just so perfectly written. And, I've seen a lot of reader emails over the years, and they're not typically this tidy and thoughtful. And it didn't really have a specific ask other than wanting the author to expound further on, her life and the lessons learned. And I just thought, this is weird. This is a
Mm-hmm.
very weird email. And so it had a real name attached to it. So with the writer sitting there, I put that name into Google. It immediately turned up a LinkedIn profile for that person who's a freelance editor saying, "Someone is using my name to engage in marketing scams with authors. Please beware and report them to the FTC."
Wow.
And of course, I showed that to the writer. I said, "You have been taken, and I hope you haven't engaged further with this person." We didn't go into those details. I think the person may have been embarrassed at being taken, as writers often are. There's a lot of shame surrounding, getting caught up in these scams. But I think the signs here are pretty clear if you have engaged with AI. Like you can see how like kind of the perfection that reaches a level of fakery almost.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that there are no errors, and that it's so thoughtful, and also a kind of a lack of voice. Like it didn't feel like a real reader. It felt like an idealized version of a reader. But of course, if, some people may not be able to catch that sort of subtext if they don't have a lot of experience with reader emails. So I guess the way that you could detect it is maybe just doing what I did, which was Googling the name to see what comes up.
Yeah, it sounds like in this case the person also pretty sneaky in that they weren't asking for something right
Right,
away.
right. They were trying to get that emotional engagement, getting sucking the person deeper into this relationship and building trust first.
Yeah, that's scary. And so like one way to protect yourself would be if you get some sort of outreach email like that, go look on LinkedIn, like use the name and
Mm-hmm.
see. And if you want, I would say if you want to contact the person, maybe contact them separately, like outside of the email chain.
Yes.
Might be a little safer. I just thought of something too. Like a lot of people are using AI, maybe not a lot, but people are using AI to write their emails and things like that now. So it could have also been a real person who had been using
Right.
AI to clean up their writing.
Right, right. That's what makes this so difficult, because there are certainly legitimate people who may contact you with the help of AI. So it's, you know, you end up going back to the kind of foundational ways to avoid scams, which is don't pay money to someone that you don't have some other supporting evidence that they are who they say they are. You have to double and triple check their business and their track record, look for testimonials, look for pictures and names and physical locations.
Yeah, you have to be wary. Actually, right after I saw your newsletter with that piece, I saw a Reuters article. They partnered with Harvard to test a bunch of different chatbots to see if they could get them to write phishing emails, specifically targeting seniors, which are just, I don't know, the most distasteful.
Yes.
They make me especially angry. And they found Grok was willing to do it from a prompt that said something like straight up what they were doing, write a phishing email targeting seniors. And then, so that was extra bad, but they tested the other major chatbots as well. Let me pull it up here and see. It was Claude, Gemini, DeepSeek, Meta's AI, and ChatGPT. They were pretty easily able to get each of them to write
Mm-hmm.
phishing emails. These systems, they're programmed to please the user, and they're also really gullible in some ways. So, they were like, well, those systems weren't like Grok. They wouldn't do it when we asked outright. But if we said it was for a research project or for a novel I was writing for research
Mm-hmm.
or something like that, they quickly were able to get them to do it. So I think, even outside of publishing, the scams, they're getting a lot better, and they're, you can't identify them just by, the poor writing anymore, the clunky phrasings.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just personally, I've noticed a huge uptick in the number of solicitations I've been getting in the last 6 months. I don't know if you noticed something similar,
Yeah.
but it's just skyrocketed.
Yeah, me too. And also the follow-ups. I've been getting so many more like quick check-in, did you miss
Mm-hmm.
this kind of follow-ups? And I think it's just because AI makes it so much faster for people to write them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's frustrating. Yeah. So we're going to move on. I had an interesting experience this week with the idea of AI note takers. Have you ever been in a meeting that had an AI note taker in it?
Almost all the time. Yes.
Really? Oh, that's fascinating. So for how long?
Oh gosh, anywhere from a 15-minute meeting to more than an hour.
Oh no, I mean how long have you been, like
Oh,
calendar
I see.
wise? How long have you been doing
Oh,
this?
I would say I've been noticing it for at least a year.
Wow. And like, is this people, are they initiated by you or by people who you're having meetings with?
I don't personally use them. I will generate a transcript often for meetings that are really important to me, but I don't use the AI tools to take the notes.
Yeah.
So it's almost always someone else, turning that on. And sometimes I'm alerted and sometimes I'm not, which is
Oh,
kind of
ooh.
creepy.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah.
So I had my first experience with someone asking me if they could use an AI note taker in a meeting. And at first, I'll say, I absolutely appreciate being asked. I think it was handled in exactly the right way. And in the past, I had felt like this, in passing, I had felt like this seems like a great and handy tool. Like, of course, that would be wonderful to have someone just taking notes, or, a tool taking notes. But when confronted with the idea of having one of these things in my meeting, suddenly I felt much more hesitant. I started thinking about it. And I think that it depends on the kind of meeting, and I'll get into that
Mm.
in a minute. But I thought, I think I might not be as forthcoming. I think I would feel inhibited.
I mean,
And
is it different than the meeting just being recorded?
I would feel the same way if the meeting were recorded. So I've also
Mm.
never had, outside of an interview, I've never had anyone request to record a whole meeting.
Okay.
I don't have a lot of meetings. So this is also some context. I don't have a ton of meetings like a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And this was a one-on-one meeting. So I feel like I might feel differently if it were a group meeting, because obviously there are other people there, and then maybe I'll be a little more guarded. But in a one-on-one meeting, I want to feel like I can be as forthcoming as possible.
Mm-hmm.
There in the past there have been troublesome issues I needed to discuss with someone. That was the other thing. I thought lawyers must hate this, right? I mean, like in my LinkedIn learning course about writing email, one of the things I say is, if you have a sensitive topic you need to communicate with a coworker about, it may be better not to put it in writing. You may want to
Right.
talk about it.
Yes.
Um, and so then I'm thinking, now if I have an issue, like I can't bring it up in my regular meeting, I'm going to have to schedule a separate phone call. Um, so I ultimately, but I also felt a little pressured, that like, oh, am I being a Luddite? And so ultimately I said no. And it turns out in our organization so far, I've heard two people have said yes and two people have said no. So it's
Mm.
split about 50-50. Um,
Well,
yeah. What are your thoughts?
one of the more surreal experiences I've had with that was when I kind of inadvertently ended up on the end of a sales pitch for a service as software, and it was only supposed to be like a 30-minute meeting. It stretched into about an hour because we kind of got into an argument.
Oh no.
He was a really pushy guy. Like he was basically telling me your current solutions are wrong and mine is so much better, and you just need to wake up from this delusion that you're in.
Great sales tactic.
It was really great. And so as soon as the meeting ended within a few seconds practically, I received a follow-up email that was his AI note-taking meeting summary tool to summarize what happened in that meeting. And at first I was like, I had no idea that was happening.
Yeah.
And then second, obviously, I was really interested to see how was that meeting characterized. And it actually was pretty true to the spirit of what occurred.
To say Jane got very angry.
About me, that like the customer pushes back. And I thought, well, I'm actually kind of glad to have this summary in some regard, but I really wish I had been told that it was happening.
Yes, I think that's a really important point. I just ended up very curious about the whole thing. So I did a survey on my LinkedIn and Mastodon accounts to see what other people thought about it. And first of all, it's very interesting. So very different sentiment on LinkedIn versus Mastodon, which you might not
Wow.
be surprising. Um, and I asked if people thought it was super useful, if they hated it, or if it was somewhere in between. So the winner on LinkedIn was in between. 47% said in between. 20% said they hate them. On Mastodon, 54% hate them, and then 37% thought in between. But the comments were really interesting. First, I learned there are many different tools. So there's the Gemini, Otter, Gong,
Mm-hmm.
Fireflies, Fathom, and I'm sure there are others. And I
Mm-hmm.
really got the sense that the different tools work to different quality degrees. Some people said that they've had action items assigned to the wrong people.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them give full transcripts, some of them just give, highlights. Um, yeah, in general, people seem to think the transcripts were not very useful, but the highlights were much more useful when they worked. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think that group. I also got a sense that a lot of people were using them in larger group meetings, and I think that makes a lot
Yeah.
more sense.
So, I've been in this kind of sticky situation where I run online classes, which are kind of like big meetings. Sometimes people pay, sometimes it's free. And when people join, sometimes they will launch their AI note taker and it appears in the chat that they're doing this. And then what happens is, while I don't necessarily prohibit that, I need to come up with a policy. Other people are freaked out by it, and then it becomes this thing that I have to manage people's reactions to the fact that this is in the chat. What do I do? And it's increasingly something I have to think about in advance and then create communications and policies around it.
Yeah. As with so many things with AI, it's very new and there are issues around it that you don't consider at first when you start using it or when it starts being used around you. I think it's
Right.
so fascinating. And people's reactions, like everything, people's reactions are different. Some people say having it in the meeting helps me listen better because I'm not focused on trying to write things down. Other people say when I'm in a meeting with it, nobody's paying attention because they assume the notes are being taken and
Yeah,
they'll get the summary.
exactly. Yeah.
So it's just people being different and tools being good and bad at what they do, and we have to think it through. But just thought that was a very interesting new thing for me to deal with in my
Yeah.
life.
Well, something I wanted to bring up was an article I read recently about AI chatbots hallucinating links.
Ooh.
And this is so the article that I found was by an SEO company, Ahrefs, and they did a lot of number crunching about how often this happens, which it's not that much. It's like maybe less than 2% of links that it comes up with are hallucinated.
Hmm.
And for those who run websites like I do, like I'm kind of fascinated by this and I want to figure out what exactly is being hallucinated on my
Yeah.
site. And because I think there's actually some interesting market intelligence there. Like maybe if this doesn't exist, maybe I need to create it.
Yeah.
And certainly I've experienced this personally, getting hallucinated links to my own website, because sometimes I will get email writing assistants for general questions that come over the transom, people asking like, how do I get my book published or whatever, and it's like it's right on my site. And so I'll have AI help draft a response that includes links that tailored to the questions I'm being asked. And so sometimes when I go through that, because obviously I double check it, it will hallucinate things that aren't on my site.
Huh.
And so it is this weird little quirk. And I don't like I haven't done anything yet to address the issue because it is really small in the grand scheme of things, but I do find it just yet another wrinkle in what AI will make up.
Yeah, that's so interesting. After I saw yours, I actually again happened to see a blog post from someone from the Red Blob Games blog, and they said the same thing that they're looking at their web server logs, and they're seeing errors from pages that people tried to go to that don't exist, and said the same thing. Well, maybe I should write these pages if people are trying to go there. It's a like interesting new form of market intelligence.
It is. And I should add that, AI often gets criticized for hallucinations, of course. But I don't like it when people are maybe overly critical of AI for some stuff that you would get the same experience using Google. So
Yeah.
like if you compare bad links to what you would get through a normal Google search, none of the AI stuff, the error rate is actually really similar,
Yeah.
especially if you're using one of the tools that taps into Google search results anyway. Although it was interesting, that study showed that of all the hallucinated links you might encounter, it's most likely to happen through Chat GPT, which
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe they don't rely on Google as much as the other tools, but in any event, I thought that was that was a fun distinction.
Yeah. I know that they use different search tools to do their web searches, but I don't remember which tool uses which search. And one thing I think was in the article is that there actually could be two reasons that you're getting those wrong links from the LLMs like ChatGPT, is that it could be hallucinating them, but it also could be grabbing the broken links that are on the web. So
Right.
they do web searches, so they could be getting the same 404 errors that you'd get in a Google search.
Exactly. Stuff that used to exist and has been the links changed or it was taken down or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, super interesting. Well, our last topic today is I'm going to call Bias Watch. Da, da, da. We need a theme song. Is there, there are so many different tweaks that, again, I think, as a user of AI, that people should be, or even someone who just experiences out in the world, you should be aware that there are a lot of biases. And again, it's incorporating the biases that already exist in the world because it's
Mhm.
built on human content, and human content has biases. So the one I came across this week is in journal articles, so scientific, academic journal articles. A number of journals are now using LLM tools to help with peer review. So when they're deciding whether to accept journal articles for publication, and someone did a study and found that if they changed nothing but the school that the researchers were from, they would be less likely to accept the journal article if it were from a less prestigious university. So if you took the exact same article and it was written by people at Harvard versus people at like North Cal State, Cucamonga, Eastern, the Harvard one would be more likely to be accepted.
That is so distressing to me on so many levels.
I know.
Like, of course, I'm going to think about the writing and publishing community where so much rests on status and prestige and what sort of MFA program you came out of, or the places that you publish, the type of publisher. There is so much of that where I feel like writers can be disadvantaged because they don't have the credentials that are expected by certain gatekeepers.
Yeah. My first reaction was also to be horrified. But I was talking about it with my husband Pat, who was a scientist, and he said, like, just last week, didn't you tell me about some nutrition research article you saw? And I asked you like how credible it was, and you were like, no, it was published in this one journal by people from this big name university. You put that out for me as a signal about
Right.
how quality the research was. So why shouldn't the LLMs be looking at that as one of
Yeah.
the signals they look at for how credible the work is? I thought, oh, that's a pretty good argument.
Yeah, it is. I just wonder what is it over indexing on those sorts of signals? As someone who came from a small school in a non-prestigious area, I think that's why it really kind of it hurts a little bit. But
Yeah, no.
there's it reminds me of something I saw recently. I think you may have seen this too, where someone, Jessica Ferris, who does etymology books and a podcast, she was crafting her bio to influence what AI chatbots say about her. And so I'm also thinking now about what signals am I giving in my bio that AI might pick up on that I never intended. And so it's a whole new way of thinking about what you're saying about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, actually coming like full circle wholeness. That's why I was thinking I've been more active about trying to put up my author website, is because I want to be able to control the message
Yeah,
that's out there about me for AI when it's like looking for what to say about you.
yeah, yeah.
And I think with the bias stuff, another thing, you can control for that in your prompts. So if you're aware that there's bias in the world, you can try at least to build that into your prompt. So if you're building something for approving scientific articles for publication, you can have a check like did you how did like you could tell it don't consider the affiliation of the researchers, or you could say
Right.
how much did you, or you can say on a scale of 1 to 10 give 1 to the institution or something like that. So when you're aware of it, you can try to mitigate it.
Yeah, that's a fascinating point because I do that myself already with when I'm doing research on a very niche topic and there is only a handful of sources that I really trust or care about. And I definitely tell the AI, I only want you to look at these specific places.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, it's been so fascinating to talk to you today, Jane. Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Where can people find you?
JaneFriedman.com is the best place to go.
Wonderful. And if you're listening to this for the first time, you can subscribe to the AI SideQuest newsletter. That's at aisidequest.com. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you're seeing this on social media, leave a comment. We'd love to talk to you about the things we talked about today. Thanks for listening.